Hello, everyone. What a Sunday to be an African and especially to be a Cameroonian today. And because they have a date with history, they are voting. They've begun voting in a presidential election where an incumbent veteran leader, President Paul Biya, the world's oldest, I should say, a ruler at 92 is widely touted to maintain his more than 4 decades grip on power. This is even as an energized, though deeply divided opposition has staged and mounted a very spirited campaign in a bid to bring the change that is so much desired in this particular country. My name is Jojo Kachi, and it's a pleasure to meet all of you so that we can just gather together in this space as we speak about Cameroon as Africans. If you know any Cameroonian who is eligible to vote, tell them they have a date with the destiny. And if you are a Cameroonian and watching, make sure that you perform that civic duty. Of course, we are coming to you from our offices here in Bonn, Germany, and it's lovely to have this conversation. We'll be speaking to most of our correspondents who are tapped in different places doing the Lord's work in Cameroon, and they will be updating us what is going on. Now, Biya is facing 9 opposition candidates, as I've said earlier, including some former allies and appointees. They include Bello Maigari, who was a minister for tourism, and Issa Chiroma Bakari, who recently served as the minister for employment. At his campaign rally last week, we saw Paul Biya visiting the northern side, which is predominantly controlled by these 2 candidates I've mentioned earlier, and Biya promised change for one of Cameroon's poorest area, which is Maroa. And this area is predominantly Muslim, and it covers a sizable amount of the votes. That's why there are talks that indeed these 2 candidates may mount a very spirited contest against Biya. So right away, so that we get to know and understand who is vying, what are they promising the voters, and what should Cameroonians, depend and expect from them. Here is a report by our very own colleague, Blaise Ingom.
Cameroonians are heading to the polls for what some consider a decisive election. 8 million Cameroonians have registered to vote. 12 candidates are vying for the top job. Here are the top 5 candidates. The incumbent, Paul Biya, is 92 years old, making him the world's oldest leader. Biya has been in power for 42 years. He has ruled Cameroon with an iron fist. Paul Biya is seeking a new 7-year term. He has promised better days ahead for Cameroonians if re-elected.
My goal, my fellow citizens, is for every young person, wherever they may be, to have opportunities that enable them to easily find a job or become an entrepreneur.
Un emploi ou de devenir un entrepreneur.
His main challenger, opposition leader Maurice Kamto, was barred from running. This is Issa Chiroma, a former minister. Chiroma spent more than 20 years in Biya's government, including as a spokesperson. He resigned in June and is now challenging the man he once defended. He has promised to lead a post-Biya transition.
We don't have roads. We don't have a place to stay. We have nothing at all in Cameroon. We suffer a lot. In your own country, you are not allowed to live freely. You live like a foreigner.
Bello Buba is another former minister. He comes from the north, just like Issa Chiroma. Bello has been involved in Cameroonian politics for over 40 years, including as prime minister. The 78-year-old was an ally of Paul Biya until he decided to challenge him in this election.
We must protect our vote, remain vigilant at the polling stations, monitor the counting of votes, reject all fraud, refuse to let your victory be stolen, because change will come from the people.
Cabral Libi is an MP and the second youngest candidate in this election. Aged 45, he promised to change the way things are done in the country. He came third in the last election in 2018. If elected, he says he wants to create jobs for young people and fight corruption.
After 43 years, this system don't fail.
Joshua Osei of the Social Democratic Front is from the English-speaking part of Cameroon, where separatist conflict is raging. He has pledged to bring an end to the fighting. Whoever becomes the president of Cameroon for the next 7 years will have to tackle a series of problems. These include security and the worsening economic situation affecting millions of Cameroonians.
Our very own Blaze. And Blaze and our reporter Moki Kinzeka will be joining us just shortly. Remember, if you're joining us right now, we're speaking Cameroon. We are talking about Cameroon's future. We're talking about the historic moment in this particular and lovely African country where they are either going to vote for retaining their long-term leader or to change their long-term leader. And then as we can see already, Blaise is there with us. Blaise, what a historic moment. And Moki, a very warm welcome to this conversation, and thank you for coming on board. Maybe I start with you, Blaise, just to tell our viewers where you are doing the Lord's work from and how this historic moment is shaping up in wherever you're reporting from.
Hello, I'm reporting live from Douala, Cameroon's largest city, Cameroon's economic capital. It's a big day in Cameroon as Cameroon is hosting elections. The last time we had elections here was 2018, and it's an important election as the Cameroonian president, who is 93, has been in power for 42 years. So the turnout has been good so far from indications with other journalists and colleagues across the country. The polling stations that DW has visited, we've seen a large crowd. People come out to cast their votes despite the rains that took place here this morning in the city of Douala. We just spoke to opposition leader Joshua Osei, who said that his party has witnessed ballot stuffing in the coastal city of Limbe in southwest Cameroon, and they've accused the ruling CPDM party of trying to rig the elections. A lot of young people are voting.
Yeah, it seems like we're losing Blaise. And maybe before we get back to Blaise, I don't know, Isaac Alechi is one of my colleagues also, is part of this particular amazing team that is making this a reality. Isaac, if you can hear me, can we get, do we have Moki Kinzeka?
Yes, so Moki, I think is just, I mean, I'm sure the challenge has been with the internet, obviously, on the ground.
Yeah, that can be understood. Yeah, for sure, that can be understood. But Isaac, just a greeting to our viewers as well, and tell us where you're coming from, and so that we can appreciate.
Yes, so I'm currently in Accra, monitoring happenings in Cameroon as well. Yeah.
Yeah, so from that region, it's because of the proximity as well, Isaac. Tell us how are people maybe in Ghana following up on this particular election? It is a historic one in Africa, I must say.
Yes, I mean, people are watching Cameroon closely, again, because of the president of Cameroon, obviously. A lot has been said about his age and how long he has ruled Cameroon. And even at this old age, he still is going for another term. So obviously, it's an election that a lot of people have been following from Accra, from West Africa as well, because I think Cameroon is close by to Nigeria. And obviously, we know West Africa, how huge it is. So people have been following the election, just hoping to see exactly whether Cameroonians indeed will give him that mandate to go for another term, even at an advanced age. I'm sure that is the decision by Cameroonians to decide what is best for them, but I'm sure the rest of Africa obviously will also have their own opinion on say once the see the results come in. Yeah. So basically,
Oh,
everyone is watching from West Africa. Yeah.
yeah, that's lovely to hear, Isaac, and we can't reiterate how important this particular vote is. And as Isaac is stating, it is a choice for Cameroonians to make. And if you know any Cameroonian eligible to vote, tell them to go, wake up, go line up and do that civic duty. So we have Blaise back. Blaise, sorry, we were not able to get you coherently because I think of internet challenges. Is it a challenge maybe to establish? Blaise, if you can hear us, we were just having a conversation about maybe there could be some internet challenges. It's likely that
Yeah, I'm sure.
we're not getting him, Isaac, and or you, yeah,
Yeah, I
you
think.
could go for it, Blaise. Blaise, can you hear us? Well, sometimes, Isaac, as you appreciate, sometimes in coverage of such elections, internet connectivity can always be an issue, and then
Yeah.
for obvious reasons. And I don't know if we have Moki Kinzeka also joining us.
Yeah. So Moke is yet to join us, but we can try Blaze again and see if things have gone well for him. Yeah, Blaze, if you could just tell us how things are shaping up where you are.
Blaise is muted.
Yeah, Blaze is muted. Yeah.
Yeah, such challenges that we face. But of course, just to update our viewers who are currently following this particular
Yeah, I think it's back
live
now. Blaze,
coverage,
you can go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Blaise can go ahead.
Thank you. So voting is still going on here in Douala. A lot of people are still coming into this voting center in Bonanjo, here in Cameroon's economic capital, and people trying to cast their vote. I've seen a lot of young people come to cast their vote. I've seen women come here, the elderly, the disabled. Um, I've covered two elections in Cameroon, and I've not seen this amount of turnout. There's a big enthusiasm with people who've come out to cast their votes today. Some of the people we've spoken to have said that they have only had one president for their entire life, and they're seeking to vote in another person. But you also have supporters of the ruling party who've come to cast their vote to re-elect President Biya to extend his rule in Cameroon. It has been a peaceful protest. Not much has been reported concerning violence in other places. It's worth noting that in the Anglophone part of Cameroon, the English-speaking regions in Cameroon, people still have difficulties voting. One of my sources told me this morning that some voting centers in the city of Boya in Anglophone Cameroon were moved to much safer areas because it was simply not safe for the population to go out there and vote. But so far, from all indications from what we've seen on the ground and the people we've spoken to, voting is going on peacefully. But like we mentioned earlier, when we spoke to opposition leader Joshua Osi a short while ago, he told DW that they have recorded a major incident in the city of Limbe where they
Mhm.
accused the ruling party of ballot stuffing. They said they saw an individual voting 100 times. So that this person was caught with 100 ballot papers of the ruling CPDM party.
Yeah, yeah. And what are the authorities reacting to that, and particularly the ELICAM, the electoral body? What are they reacting to these claims?
Stevie, I don't know if you can hear me. Isaac,
Yeah,
can you
yes, I
hear me?
can hear you, Blaise. I don't know if you can hear us. Or rather, maybe we will get back to Blaise. Blaise is with us throughout this particular coverage. We will be getting back to Blaise. Maybe let's just have a view of what Moki has experienced so far. Moki, if you can hear us and tell us what is currently going on from where you are reporting from. Moki Kinzeka, if you can hear us, go for it.
Yeah, I'm sure internet has been a challenge. Yeah.
Yeah, it's indeed a challenge, Isaac, and we appreciate these are things that happen normally during such
Yeah, Blaise is
wide electoral coverage.
yeah, and Blaise wanted to make a comment. Yeah, Blaise, please go ahead. Yeah, I mean, how are officials reacting to the claims of some irregularities happening on the ground?
Hello, Isaac, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. So we're asking how are officials reacting to the claims of irregularities on the ground?
Isaac, I believe we will be able to get back to them and establish maybe if we can manage that successfully. But of course, to our viewers who are following this proceeding, it is a historic moment for Cameroon, and Biya's critics are still hoping that it can be ousted after decades of economic stagnation and tensions in Central African nation of over 30 million people. Cameroon, Isaac, is an oil-rich and cocoa, producer, and Biya's government has always denied that Cameroon is not, facing economic stagnation. They say it is a country that is ruled democratically, and everything is going on in a proper way. But that is a choice for the voters who are participating in this particular exercise to make their choice. Voting began today in the morning. That was at 7 GMT, and the polling stations are expected to close at 1700 GMT. So, Isaac Kalechi.
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah, George. Yeah.
Yes, now that you can hear me, we've had a lot of, the conversation have been around removing Paul Biya, and particularly the claims of his age and criticism about his dwindling health. Uh, is it a narrative that is also built within the wider West Africa?
Yes, I mean, obviously, Africa has a challenge when it comes to some political leaders, right? In terms of at what point do they say enough is enough and they want to leave the scene, right? It's not something that hardly happens um, on the continent, right? So obviously, it's something people really think about, and they wonder at what point will he say let's go. But again, every country decides what is best for them. And even
Mhm.
though maybe someone who perhaps wishes that something different happens, because again, there are many countries across the sub-region who have benefited from seeing different presidents, right, come and go, right? So they have that experience of that flair or that flavor, right? And in Cameroon, that may not be the case for many, many, many young people who maybe were born after he had come to power. So they will make comments. But again, is democracy in Cameroon, if that's what they want, I mean, they have to decide. But I think you cannot take that right from people who express their opinions and think that, I mean, at that age, you have to just let some young people also come into the stream, right? But again,
Yeah,
is the Cameroon to decide. Yeah.
definitely. It is Cameroonians to decide. Should we try Blaise for the last time, Isaac?
Yes. So Blaise is on. Blaise, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you, Isaac. Can you hear me?
Okay. Sure, we can. Yeah. George was asking about how officials are reacting to the claims of irregularities on the ground.
Um, I, so far, we've not had any official reaction from the Cameroonian authorities about this accusation of ballot stuffing and fraud. But in the past, they've dismissed this accusation. Um, these accusations like this are not new when it comes to elections in Cameroon. Uh, Several of observers and rights groups in the past have raised concerns the way elections are organized in Cameroon and the level of transparency. The the ruling party still has
Mm-hmm.
a strong hand in Cameroon's um, judiciary and the security forces, and some opposition parties even accuse the ruling party of having a finger when it comes to the election body, which is known as election. So these allegations of fraud are not new when it comes to elections in Cameroon. Big and notable rights groups have raised these concerns in the past, and I think in the coming hours or days, we're going to probably hear from the Cameroonian authorities the response they have concerning these allegations that have been made against them.
Okay, many thanks, Blaise, for that.
Some of
Continue
them
doing the
didn't
right
have
thing.
their voters' cards. Some of them went to polling stations. Their names
We'll
were
be
not
coming to
there.
you.
We also
Sorry for that, Hitch. We will be coming back to you, Blaise. Of course, just continue monitoring the situation as you update our listeners what to expect and how the entire process is ongoing. Right now, I'd like to bring on board Moki Kinzeka, our other colleague who is also following up on this election coverage. And Moki Kinzeka, if you can hear us and you're able to connect, maybe. And as we wait for Moki Kinzeka to connect, you should know that just over 8 million people have registered to vote. But in the past, we've seen that even though a high number of people had registered to vote, there was a low voter turnout, and that could largely affect the outcome of this particular election. And a recap, President Paul Biya is the world's oldest ruler at 92. And he is widely touted to maintain his more than 4 decades grip on power. And he is battling with key opposition candidates. One of them is Bello Buba Maigari, who was a minister in Bia's administration, and he was the Minister for Tourism. And also we had Issa Chiroma Bakari, who is also battling for that. I can see Moki Kinzeka already. Moki, if you can hear us right now, maybe can you bring us up to date up to speed rather, where you're reporting from and how the situation is?
poor internet connection. I was saying that the voting is going to that generally some of them never had their names on the polling station, and they were frustrated. They complained bitterly that they can't understand why their names were not found in the polling station where they were. Also, the President of the Republic of Cameroon, Paul Biya, voted at exactly 12 o'clock Cameroon time and made a declaration. He said, if the people of Cameroon so sovereignty, he will be able to respect the administration. I mean, he took a commitment before the Cameroonian people and said he himself would be ready to accept the verdict of the ballot. That's what he said. Reports say there is some, because the polling agents
Moki,
or the
Moki,
officials
Moki, if
sent
I can
by certain
interrupt,
political
Moki.
parties to
Because Moki, Isaac, if you can also come back, because Moki is bringing up a very important development into this.
Yeah.
And the Cameroonian leader saying that he will be able to respect the will of the people, and that by and large encouraging people that do your civic duty. I'm here offering myself as a candidate. If you elect me, I will be happy to continue serving. If you don't, I will respect your will. So I just wanted Moki to reiterate on that because there was some sort of, internet connectivity issue. Moki, if you
Yeah,
can
Moki.
hear it.
we're still having lots of internet problems out here. I don't even know.
Or rather, Isaac, because our viewers have already seen Moki's face, do you think maybe
Of
with an audio report of
Yeah,
this only?
yeah,
Maybe
maybe
Moki,
Moki
you
can
can switch off
switch off the
your
camera.
video, and then we
Yeah,
just
to
have
replay.
you, because that also
Yeah.
serves the internet connectivity issue, Isaac, right?
Yeah, I mean, those are the challenges. I mean, when it comes to development across Africa, it's important for us to focus on the most important things, right, that benefit ordinary people, something like this, right? So yeah, I'm sure we'll get Moki back once he can put off his camera and then have enough had connectivity to be able to speak to us. Yeah. Basically, it's an important issue that Moki mentioned, which is about the fact that Biya agrees that he will respect the will of the people, right? And so whatever Cameroonians decide is exactly what he will go by. So I think that is actually something that we need to commend him. If indeed the results don't go his way, he is able to let go and let's and whoever wins to continue. Moki is back. Moki, if you can just put your camera off so that your connectivity will be better, and then you could speak to us. Yeah, I'm sure that could also help with the connectivity. Yeah, but please go ahead. Yeah, Moki. Okay, so I guess Moki can't hear us, but George, I know that also some Cameroonians in the Anglophone region have been speaking, right, about the era of Biya and exactly how they feel about his governance. I mean, maybe we could take a listen to them as well, because obviously it's interesting
Yeah,
that
definitely. Very important.
Biya says that he will let go if he loses. So maybe we could
Yeah,
just take a
definitely.
listen.
Let's listen to the Cameroonians from the Anglophone region.
Sure.
Term of office should be dropped down from 7 to say 4. Change in the political crisis that we have in Cameroon, change in the general lifestyle of Cameroonians. Almost all of them, but for a few, see the war or the conflict in the southern Cameroons as a serious issue. It's so touching, it's appealing. 40 that I am, it's not also fair that I have not known 2 or 3 or 4 presidents that could make some comparison. And within the regime, we would have just had another person.
Wish for a better development for everyone and let the best win. Just wish that the best that has the best intention for Cameroon should win. I trust that all the information that will be trusted to the various agents of ELECAM will be confidential. So I think that's their own will to handle.
I think there are 3 key things that have to be urgent on the agenda or on the table of the new president. We have the resolution of the Anglophone crisis, the reconciliation, national reconciliation, that is making people to go beyond tribalism, and thinking of new perspective on how to initiate reforms, economic reforms, so that the country can emerge. Conscious Cameroonians today should know who is having the characteristics of somebody we want to see make this country go ahead. Yes, I think he said he wanted to be remembered as someone who brought democracy in Cameroon. But at this point in time where we are, we think that there is a crisis of democratic values in the country, and even if he is elected, I think he has to revamp the democratic values again, because the country, the question of freedom of expression in the country, and you see we have some candidates who were not even allowed to stage the political campaign in some areas in the country. I think that we have to really, if he comes back as a new president, then he should revamp the democratic values in the country. I think that my first message is that Cameroonians should not lose the passion of being for the passion of having, because most of them are out to get goods from these candidates. If 5,000 francs given to you now, think of 7 years to come.
Isaac, as you've heard from Cameroonians, very sticky issues being brought about, and one is that is reverberating is the issue of the Anglophone crisis, the insecurity, and trickles down to cases of marginalization, people feeling that they're not part of the country. But I would also want to bring back Moki Kinzeka, because Moki has reported widely from the Anglophone region, and just Moki to update us. Moki, you had internet connectivity issues when you are making a very important point about the president saying that he is ready to respect the will of the people. So maybe if you can pick it up from there.
Yes, President Paul Biya actually said he will be ready to respect the will of the people. But the question now is if the people's will be respected by his collaborators, by people who are close to him. Because at the polling stations, there were already cries of people not being able to vote. Some people said they didn't see their cards. Others said their names were not in their polling stations. And then representatives of political parties are also complaining. Some representatives of political parties who are supposed to be in the polling stations to make sure that Elecam or their partners don't tamper with the. They were asked to bring letters authorizing them to go to the polling station. So actually, the election is taking place in some places without the representatives of the opposition candidates, which in itself is not a good thing in the Yaoundé and surrounding villages up to now have been about 50%. It means that people are still showing up before the process. Many people should have vote. There is the fact that people think President Paul Biya wants to. If people really vote and defend their votes, it may be something to write home about. So the civil society groups telling the voters not to go home or to be there back at 6 o'clock and assist when the votes are being counted. That is exactly what is happening here now. And we hope that by evening, many people will be there outside to follow up to see how the votes are being counted and to take note of the scores in every polling station.
And Moki, critically, how about the Anglophone
So the electoral body
media?
has sometime 5 days, 10 days to submit the report to the Constitution, which has a maximum of 15 days to proclaim the results.
Yeah, and then to our viewers following this particular live coverage, you will understand that internet connectivity is an issue, as Moki has updated us about. And Moki, if you can hear me, I'm very interested to know if the election is holding in the Anglophone region and how the security situation is in this particular region.
Yeah, I'm sure the internet is a struggle. And I mean, you see the comments, Cameroon internet is fake. Obviously, it tells you that internet is a challenge. Yeah, but I think Moki can't hear us. I'm sure we'll get him back later on. But I think we also have Annalise Ndoki, who has also joined us, George. Yeah.
Yeah, Michelle Ndoki is one of the people who's been following this particular process, and today she will be here to help us dissect and understand, some of the challenges that the country is going through, and of course, what this election means to the country. And Michelle, just for the interest of our viewers and people who are following this live coverage, maybe an introduction and how you are participating in this election.
Okay. Hello, everyone, and thank you for having me. Thank you for having all of us. I'm Michelle Ndoki. I'm a lawyer by profession. I'm also a political actor, an activist, and in the framework of this particular event, I'm the national coordinator of civil society organizations initiative to supervise and monitor the election for the voters. Yes, that's
and as you've heard our reporter Moki, who was struggling to hear because of internet issues from wherever he is, he's said that civil society groups have really been urging the voters to do their civic duty and go beyond that by ensuring that their vote is protected, and it means something. So maybe if you can explain to us what this initiative is all about.
So first of all, yes, it's been a long year for us, because since the beginning of the year, a lot of civil society organizations, a lot of activists went around the country literally to encourage people to register, then to encourage them to vote. And this initiative is about grouping voters around the country. We're aiming at grouping 30,000 Cameroonian voters out of 8 million point two. And the objective was to get them to observe the process and also observe the counting, and then report on their observations onto a DISO, which is a digital solution that is collecting the report submitted by the voters.
And maybe, Michelle, if you allow me to interrupt, when you, with this particular initiative, we know the only body that is mandated to do the, collection of the results or anything to do with this election is the ELECAM, which is the mandated electoral body. Under what mandate is this DISO operating?
That's a very interesting question because it starts by saying we know that there's only one body that is mandated, and this is actually the Minister of Territorial Administration in our country, propaganda to make everybody believe that it is only the government, and in particular his ministry, that is allowed to perform this duty. First of all, territorial administration has nothing to do with law, so we would expect some other person telling us about what is legal and what is not legal when it comes to observation. Secondly, the law is very clear. Counting, for instance, is to be performed under the law in the presence of the voters. So what we are saying and what our organization is doing is gathering, offering logistics for voters who observed in their polling unit the counting to report on what they've observed. You would admit with me that there's nothing illegal. The body that you mentioned, ELECAM, is the body announcing the result at the level of the polling unit. What we do as an organization is report what ELECAM has announced. So yes, there's nothing illegal in that.
Yeah, and it triggers also my curiosity. Do you have the capacity to deploy your resources across the country so that whatever you're verifying is a coverage of the entire, choice of the voters?
This methodology was put in place by NDI, conceptualized. I was looking for the word conceptualized by NDI, National Democratic Institute, and has been implemented in over 170 elections in Africa, in Southern Asia, in Southern America, in Europe, you name it. So what is the principle? We don't recruit resources that we send somewhere. We reach out to people using media, social media, and tell them, if you want to be a volunteer, join us. So that way, everywhere you have a polling station, you could have an observer, a volunteer to join. And we don't need to cover all the polling stations. Need a representative sample of the polling station. 10% of the total of the polling station will be enough to have quality information that will allow you to give a trend with a less than 2% margin of error, just to give you an idea of how effective this process is actually. It's been implemented in Senegal, for instance, last year. It was implemented in Malawi few days ago. And in those two instances, it is the civil society organization, it is that process that announced to the world first what the results were. And it is based on that if you take the example of Malawi, the local ELECAM was able to perform their duty and confirm what the civil society organizations had announced earlier. So
yeah, but you see, Michelle, people may be having difficulties in reconciling these two issues. It's
yes.
like now the civil society arrogating themselves to perform a responsibility of a body that has been mandated, which is paid by taxpayers' money, and maybe by and large, do you think the initiative is born from the deep-rooted mistrust in the electoral bodies of these particular countries? And let's speak about Cameroon.
I will not talk about mistrust per se. Look at it this way. This is voters, owning the process. It is their process. Yes, the electoral body is necessary because that will be the organization that proclaims the results in the end officially, that will give us the final say about what the results were. But it does not prevent voters to, use tools that are available to them and conduct a census or conduct a poll. In Europe, in America, when you have the result announced at the end of that day, you have to know those are not the official result from the body in charge under the law of proclaiming. Those are coming from organization, not civil society organization as in Africa, but census bodies that have conducted a poll or have sampled polling stations and that are giving trends, assessing results based on what they have observed in that those selected polling station. So it's something that is really very common in democratic environment these days, and it should not be perceived as a sign of defiance. It's just complementing what the official body, which has to take time to assess the result, do some corrections and things like that, will have to announce. Now, in our environment, it is clear that we do have concerns when it comes to the independence of the body. And the last elections, during the trial at the Constitutional Council, we showed beyond any doubt that there was massive rigging of the result, and that the result that were proclaimed were not the true reflection of Cameroonians' will. So
and maybe Michelle, before we get to that, just so that we establish the clarity completely of how DISO is operating, are you in any way doing the Lord's work? In that, are you volunteering, or under whose blessings is this DISO operating?
Under the blessings of Cameroonian people, I would say that's the easiest answer. This is a purely Cameroonian voters initiative. We just used everyone's talent, resource, time, etc., to put together.
So volunteering, people are volunteering.
Yes, exclusively volunteering. From the people who conceived the platform to those who are on the field at the moment, observing and reporting on irregularities. We have people from, for example, in the Northwest. I heard you asking a question about the situation. In Northwest and Southwest, in the Anglophone regions, people were really eager to vote. They were willing to face the risk and go out to vote. I received a phone call this morning from somebody in Misaje saying, whilst they were out there to go and vote, the representative of one of the candidates, the FSNC candidate, was sent away from the polling station. From Mutengene, you will hear that the military came this morning and moved the polling station from one place to another, and forbidding people from taking their phones with them as they were going to cast their vote. So
Yeah.
yes,
And Michelle, I'm glad you're bringing up that, and I would like to corroborate the same with our correspondent Moki Kinzeka.
yes.
Just hold your thought about what DISO is doing, but I would really love to hear from our correspondent Moki Kinzeka if election is holding in the Anglophone region, and what is the security situation. Because this is a very interesting, and it's intriguing what is currently happening.
So you see, the difficulty in having internet connection is part of the symptoms of how sensitive this election is to us. It's been like that since the beginning of the week, and we can't.
But you know, Michelle, one other thing that may arise with such an initiative, even as much as they have blessings from Cameroonians, is that maybe if DISO was to announce something contrary to what Elicam is announcing, then it breeds that tension within the country.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't it a concern?
So I don't think it will come to that. First of all, Elecam has, as you've been told before, something like 2 weeks before they issue their result, and that is because they are basically compiling the results manually. We do have a tool that allows us using artificial intelligence to do that work way quicker. What we gather, what we compile are results as they are published by Elecam at the polling station. That has to repeat it. So our system is clear. We have provision in the app for auditors. It is free for people to get in there and audit the whole process, verify where for each result we are to get a picture, the name of the polling station, and we've made sure that for each report you have the name of the observer, the name of the polling station, and you can geolocalize the telephone from which the report will be sent. So we are doing this very seriously, and the aim, as we were saying, this is a citizens' own initiative. It's not supporting any party. It is not sponsored by any organization.
No, but you will appreciate, Michelle, that as much as you're talking of it as a citizens' initiative, Cameroon is
no, my point is, point is just to say there's no reason we will uphold anything else but the truth.
Okay.
We are just Cameroonians wanting to know what Cameroonians have decided on a day like this.
Yeah, but you know, human beings and Cameroonians included may have biases, and they are the people who may be volunteering, and some of them may be supporting Isachiroma, some of them supporting Biya to retain power in a historic fashion. So how do you reconcile that, and to ensure that there is integrity within what you are doing, which I call the Lord's work?
My quick answer would be we have both in our organization. This organization has members who are from civil society, members who are militants of political parties. We reached out to every single candidate to tell them, we want you to send us volunteers to be part of this initiative. For as long as the report is substantiated by a picture or a proof of where it's coming from, and it ties with the records that we have. For all the polling stations, we do have the name and the number of people registered. So before your result is taken into account, there is a control of the coherence of your report with what we already have as data in the platform. So we are really trying our best. Of course, we are humans, and that includes the regime people at the moment. We are humans, and we might be biased. But I think one of the guarantees that DISO offers is we gathered Cameroonians from all around the country, from diverse background, from diverse political affiliations, and that helps us to remain, how would I put it?
Independent. Independent should be the word, yeah.
On what is our common goal.
Okay.
That is the way I look at it today.
Michelle, hold your thoughts. I want us to discuss more about the electoral system. But before we do that, I really want to hear from Moki Kinzeka to tell us if election is holding in the Anglophone region. We had cases of, the separatists claiming that there is no election that will be allowed to hold. And just to paint the security picture in the Anglophone so that people can also appreciate Moki. This internet can be a bit frustrating. I don't know if Moki can get us. He's coming in and off, on and off. But as Isaac tries to sort that out, Michelle, and we've seen claims that the country is operating under a very broken electoral system. How do you react to such claims yourself?
The system is not the best. That is something nobody will question. We've received, for instance, threats when we announced this initiative. And as I said earlier, we announced it to everybody, including the authorities. So it is quite unsettling to receive threats in response. You would expect to receive questions, You would expect to see the authorities wanting to understand more the initiative and look into it, see that we are not biased, for instance, but threats. Threats are the reason why we're doing what we're doing. Because a government that will threaten you for doing something perfectly legal, not claim that you're violating the law, but threaten you, will give you all the more reason to supervise and monitor the election to make sure that the Cameroonian people's will not be changed.
And Michelle, there could be claims from the government that initiatives such as what you are spearheading are being sponsored from outside forces. How would you respond to such claims?
We were conscious of the fact that this might be an accusation, and as you know, civil society activity has been very difficult in Cameroon since last year. The same Minister of Territorial Affairs decided all of a sudden to go after each and every single civil society organization, association, non-governmental organization, and say that they are no more authorized to receive funding. So even if we were to be supported by any international organization or foreign force, it will not be possible from a practical point of view because we will not be allowed to receive funding. Okay. So we did what we did with our own resources.
All right, Michelle, that's fair enough. Hold your thought to that, and we proceeding with this particular conversation, but only after we hear from Moki. I hope internet will do us some justice here. And Moki, if you can hear us now, maybe come on board and tell us what is happening in the Anglophone region. Is election holding? We seem to be struggling to get Moki Kinzeka. Maybe we may have to try it later on. But Michelle, we've seen there is a growing and a breeding voter apathy, and much as we are told that 8 million Cameroonians have registered to participate in this important civic duty. Not all of them are going to vote for some reason. And how do you, other than just bringing up such initiatives, How do you restore the trust in the electoral process so that people vote and are rest assured that their vote will count?
I think part of it was really to get them to think somebody somewhere is going to protect this voice. I think this is a very, very important part of it. Second part was providing them with alternative leadership. I mean, candidates that they can rely on, that they see as really people who care for them, and will feel later on accountable. And I think we've achieved that for 2025. What we've seen, what we've witnessed everywhere in Cameroon, if I look at the success of this initiative, it tells me, and again, because it is volunteering purely, we don't provide any form of financial support to the volunteers. And sometimes it costs to go from one town to the other. It costs data, it costs telephone credit to be able to talk to people, to send reports, and all that people are doing by themselves. And I think that means they now are coming to the realization that if we are to get better leaders, we need to choose them. We need them to do better, means we need them to show them. We need to show them we care. That the next leader of the Cameroonian people will be someone that we will have chosen. It will be the first time in the history of this country that we truly choose our own leader. The first one was appointed by the French people. The second one, who is still here, there 43 years down the line, was appointed by the first one. And read the election all along to remain on seat until today. So it will be the first time. And the reason it has happened so far is very low level of participation. You got that point. Okay. This time around, people understand that they can make a difference by voting. And we are really looking forward to see what the reports are going to tell us about the participation at the end of the day.
Definitely, we will be coming to you also to get the view of how things are going on. But on a personal view, have you voted yourself?
On a personal level, I had to choose between being here for this exercise, organizing the teams, and be in a place where I can be safe because I've been threatened myself, and voting.
Okay.
So I chose the first one.
Okay, I was about to ask where you were, but I don't want to expose
Yes, it will be difficult for me. I am in a hideout, yes.
Of course.
But my son just told me as we were talking, "Oh, Mom, I'm going out to vote for you." It will be the first time he votes, so it means a lot to me.
Yeah, and therefore, if your son is going to vote, and I'm sure the people who believe in, in change are going to vote. Change doesn't mean that removing President Paul Biya, but of course, change which is bred from what they perceive as change. Yes. Do you think their vote will count this time around?
Yes, as long as we can protect the truth, and this is what we're doing, it will count. It will definitely count. I'll tell you something. It's for the first time in the history of this country, before even the voting, the ruling party has issued a communique complaining about the possibility of massive rigging. Isn't that telling you that this time around, nobody knows what will happen, and nobody knows is the situation we should be in every single election. So I believe truly that Cameroonians are going to own this process from the beginning to the end this time around.
Yeah, definitely. And many thanks for joining us to just bring us up to speed
Thank you
with
for having me.
what the initiative is doing. But Michelle, we may be getting back to you maybe later on. And many thanks for that. And as Michelle reiterates, that change begins by Cameroonians, and it's you to perform that civic duty if you have the opportunity to do so. Now, if we can get Moki Kinzeka, Isaac Kalechi.
Moki, still challenged with internet. I'm sure that we are not being favored by that. I'm
Oh,
sure
they
in
got the
before we
internet.
obviously
I can see Moki
yeah,
back.
yeah.
Moki
So
Kinzeka.
Moki, yeah, let's see if he hears you now and he can say something. Hello, Moki.
Moki,
I'm
go for
sure
it,
that
go for
the
it.
internet. Yeah, Moki, go ahead. Okay, so I guess that it's a struggle, but I'm
Yeah,
sure
it has
that
been
with
a
the
struggle, Isaac. Yeah, and Isaac, as we've spoken to Michelle Ndoki, it all trickles down to issues of credibility of the entire electoral system, which Cameroon's electoral body has been accused of, mismanaging the entire process, and therefore making the entire, voting exercise usher red. I don't know, what is your comment on that, Isaac?
Yeah, I mean, it's a challenge across Africa when it comes to election or management processes, right? Usually, peak parties in power will want to have some control over the electoral commission or the body that is organizing elections, because that guarantees them the opportunity to continue to be in power. I mean, every
Yeah.
politician wants to be in power. There's no political party or politician that doesn't want to prolong stay in power, right? And so control over the electoral management system can't guarantee that for them. But I think it's in the interest of every country that ordinary citizens believe in the independence of the election management body, right? That
Yes.
their vote counts. I mean, for the politicians, all you need to do is to deliver on the mandate, campaign, and convince people why they should vote for you. But as to who has voted and whose vote counts is the management body, the election, that must have that trust among citizens. And I think that is what really can bring down any tension or any conflict in elections that we've seen over the years. So I think that the Cameroonian electoral body has to really prove that indeed it's independent and everyone's vote in this election really counted, and the results are clear for everyone. There's no need for any manipulation. That is important for us because it allows us to grow our democracy and also to let people believe in the system. Because again, if people lose faith in the system, then obviously you have no system at all in place.
Yeah, and to our viewers who are just joining us right now, we are in this particular space in our studio, not studios, but our offices here in Bonn, Germany. My name is Jojo Kachi, and Isaac Alechi is part of this particular team. And we are talking about Cameroon. We're interested to see this historic process, how it unfolds, and if they will indeed retain their long-term leader, Paul Biya. And Biya is facing a stiff competition from Bello Buba Maigari, who was once a minister in his administration, and also Issa Chiroma, who were one of top of the list, who are promising to give President Paul Biya a run for his money. And we've been really struggling to get our reporter Moki Kinzeka to update us on the situation in the Anglophone region. And Moki, let's give it another chance and another opportunity. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can get you now 5-on-5. Now, about the situation in the English-speaking, the separatist fighters had vowed to disrupt the election. So today, very early in the morning, the government said they had moved some protesters to Savannah. I don't know if you're getting me, please.
Yes, I can get you. Go ahead.
Yeah, the government said they moved some polling centers to safer localities where the voters could be protected by the military. And in those type of situations, you know that the fighters as
Yeah, the internet is It's really a challenge, George.
It's stopping the juices from flowing, and Moki is giving us very
Yeah.
important information that we don't want to miss. But basically, just to summarize what he's trying to say is that the separatists had vowed that there is no election holding in the Anglophone region, and the government intervened by trying to set up alternative voting centers where the voters were supposed to go there. But what we really want to establish is indeed if the voters have breast and this particular challenge and are brave enough to participate. But Isaac, we've been speaking about the integrity of the entire process, and our colleague Mimi Mefo also had an interview with Dr. Christopher Fomunyo. I think we can play that so that we can also get the gist of how people perceive this aspect.
Sure.
They are expected to either vote President Paul Biya again. He's been in power for more than 4 decades, or discontinue with his legacy. According to you, as someone who's been having his eyes on Cameroon politics for several decades now, what makes these elections different from the previous election that have taken place in Cameroon?
Well, first of all, I would say this is truly a historic election because it's the first time ever in Cameroon or in Africa or even in the world that a candidate is running for president at age 92. Secondly, Biya at his weakest politically has got an opposition that seems to have galvanized the population in a way that even he and his party did not expect. And so as polls open today, it will be interesting to watch the voter turnout, and the ruling party could very well end up with some surprises that they didn't anticipate even a few months ago.
So are there some signs that Cameroonians want change? And if there are, what are the signs?
I would say that so far, some of the candidates have been very good at describing this election as a referendum on President Biya and the fact that he's been in power and governed the country for the past 43 years. And so simply put, if you ask Cameroonians whether they're better off, they've seen improvements in their lives in the past 4 decades, then most of them would say no. And so that has really been a way to compare and contrast the main opposition candidates who acknowledge some of the failures of the past, but also promise to do better. And candidate Paul Biya, who basically has been standing for the status quo. And I think that that distinction alone has galvanized people to say this is really their moment. For everyone that believes in change through the ballot box, this is their opportunity to vote out a regime that has governed the country for 43 years and vote in people who are open to national reconciliation, to a transition period during which many of the grievances will be addressed so the country could have a new start.
Now, you've observed elections in so many countries in Africa, countries in the Central African sub-region, in West Africa, in East, and also in Southern Africa and other parts of the world. What are some of the best election practices that Cameroon should adopt or learn from other countries where you've been an observer to ensure transparency and credibility in today's election and even after?
In fact, you really touched on the key word, which is transparency. And I think if everybody goes into the electoral process with a sense of contributing to the transparency of the electoral of the process, then we would see citizens coming out en masse to vote, citizens being very vigilant at polling sites to be sure that all the candidates have all of their ballots in equal numbers at each one of the polling sites, to make sure no candidate runs short of ballots, to make sure that the disposition, first the localization, that's the placement of polling sites, it's done in areas that are open to public scrutiny, not in private houses or in chieftaincies or in military barracks, as may have been the case in the past, to make sure that voters are able to cast their ballots in the secrecy of the ballot booth so that nobody can influence them when they stand to cast their ballots, to choose which one of the candidates to vote for. And then, most importantly, that at the end of the day, when voting is over, the polling officials conduct themselves in a way that's professional in terms of counting the ballots in open, in openness, in the presence of voters, and then transmitting those results to ELECAM, the Central Election Administration body, for further tabulation and official announcement. And I think if each one of these processes is conducted in a transparent manner, it will enhance citizens' confidence that the outcome will be a true reflection of what Cameroonians want.
You just mentioned ELECAM, which is the elections governing body in Cameroon. There are concerns amongst voters as well as election observers about ELECAM's credibility, and people are also worried about the security situation in some parts of the country, like in the English-speaking regions and also in the far north where we have the Boko Haram insurgency. How might these factors impact the integrity and inclusiveness of the election today?
With regards to ELECAM, I think some of the apprehensions on the part of voters and citizens in general, some of the apprehensions are warranted because of the way in which the makeup of the people that run ELECAM. But I've always said to my fellow compatriots that those that run ELECAM are Cameroonians as well. They also have the interests of the country at heart. They're law-abiding citizens, and we should give them the benefit of the doubt, even if we also have to verify their performance to make sure that everyone is in their best behavior and conducts themselves in accordance with the law, but also as professionally as can be. So I think the onus is on ELECAM to prove itself. And I've been through many elections, I've observed elections in many countries where citizens first went in fearful that the election commission or election management body may not be able to be truthful in its performance, but coming out at the end surprised with the fact that that election management body also respected the will of the people and made it known in a very public way. With regards to the security situation, you're very right that with the prevailing insecurity in the two English-speaking regions of the country, because of what is commonly known as the Anglophone crisis, some citizens may be uncomfortable coming out to vote. We also know that many citizens from these two regions of the country have become internally displaced citizens and moved because they moved out of their villages, they moved out of their constituencies, out of their subdivisions, and even out of the regions. And some of them did not transfer their voter registration as they moved into other parts of the country. So these people are going to be unable to vote. But even for the citizens that are still in these two regions, I think extraordinary steps would have to be taken to guarantee the safety and security of the voters. And even more importantly, to make sure that whatever the voter the voter turnout is in these regions should be reflected by the official announcements of ELECAM. There should be no effort to try to inflate the voter turnout in favor of one candidate or the other on the assumption that people did not show up to vote because of fears with regards to their security. With regards to the extreme north and Boko Haram, that's also one crisis which is being impacted, which is impacting Cameroon from the outside, because the Boko Haram extremists are really based for the most part in northeastern Nigeria and sometimes run incursions across the border into Cameroon. The fear there is, the important thing would be to assure citizens in those villages that have in the past come under Boko Haram attacks, first to reinforce security there and also reassure them that the security services will be on hand to guarantee their safety on election day. And I think if this is done for those three regions that currently face security challenges, we may be able to have elections in a calm environment, and when the votes are announced, have citizens in those regions believe that the outcome was a true reflection of what happened on election day in those three regions specifically.
Yes, talking about those that have been displaced, when we interviewed some opposition party members in Cameroon, we also realized that many of those who have been displaced were worried about what could potentially happen if they want to vote elsewhere. So that's really something that we have also been observing from our end. Now,
Yes,
many
and I could
Cameroonians,
say,
yes.
if I could just, sorry to interrupt, but I just wanted to say on that, that there are two points that are important in the Cameroonian context. One is that they needed to have transferred their voter registration from their villages and their previous constituencies where they were initially registered to the constituencies where they are now resident. And if they didn't do that before election day, it would be very difficult for them to be able to go, even with their voter cards, and vote, because you have to show your voter card, and then your name has to be cross-checked with the voter registry in the constituency, in the polling station where you want to vote. If that transfer hadn't happened, it would be very difficult for them to cast ballots. The second thing that have happened, that I've witnessed, is the fact that in a number of African countries, even including in Nigeria, which is next door, the election management body, which in Nigeria is called INEC, Independent National Election Commission, took extraordinary steps to make sure that internally displaced persons could vote. And that is one example, and that continues to stand out as one example where during a national election, where the entire country is one constituency, important concrete steps have been taken by the election management body to make sure that even citizens that were displaced within their own country could still have an opportunity to cast their ballots for president, since the entire country is one constituency for that election. Unfortunately, if we don't do that, it couldn't work in Cameroon. But my hope is that if the election brings about meaningful change for the country, as the country goes through constitutional and electoral reform, some of those kinds of measures will be taken to make sure that future elections are more inclusive than is the case currently.
Yes, so let's talk about Cameroonians who are in the diaspora. The Cameroonian diaspora is very huge, and you've been collaborating and also exchanging with so many of them. Some of them have actually expressed frustration about limited participation in national politics. What role do you think they can play in enhancing Cameroon's democracy if they were given the chance?
Oh, Cameroonians in the diaspora have an extremely important role to play. And in my thinking, in the next dispensation, they must be given a say. They must be given that recognition that they are Cameroonians and that they continue to contribute to the economic development of the country. You only have to look at the remittances that many Cameroonians in the diaspora send to family members. You only have to look at their contributions to development projects. And you only have to look at what other countries have done to leverage the financial muscle of their diaspora, raising funds for national development projects through treasury bonds, issued towards their diaspora. Those are things that the Cameroon of tomorrow could do to really make sure that the diaspora is making a contribution. I could see in the next phase situations that also encourage this diaspora community to be more active in terms of voter registration. I've looked at some of the figures in terms of registered voters from the diaspora, and the figures are very low. In a country like India, for example, where we have a strong Cameroonian community, there are only 2 people on the registered list. That's extremely low. In Canada, there are a few hundreds or a few thousand. That's extremely low. In the United States, there are thousands of Cameroonians who are legally resident in the United States. So you would think that, and the same applies for Europe. I believe in Germany that the Cameroon is the second largest immigrant community if you take out the Turks, for example. So people from Turkey, to be sure. So the diaspora community is a treasure for this country, both in terms of economic development as well as political development, because they have other experiences that they can bring to bear to strengthen and enrich our political practices and principles. And that, for me, is an untapped treasure, which I hope Cameroon in its new dispensation will be able to take advantage of.
Just briefly, what kind of leadership do you think Cameroon deserves or needs? Is it still the same? Is it still the same kind of regime, or do you really think that changes now?
For over the past 2 decades, I have been speaking about the need for a renewal of political leadership in Cameroon. There is no doubt in my mind that given where the country finds itself at this point, Cameroon is only going to be able to reconcile itself, its citizens amongst themselves. Cameroon is only going to be able to rebuild and reform itself and gain its rightful place on the African continent or on the global stage with new leadership. There's no doubt in my mind. And I'm gratified. In many ways, I'm gratified that today millions of Cameroonians are seeing what some of us have been saying for the past 2 decades. And my hope is that this election goes peacefully, it goes well, it's well monitored by citizens and civil society organizations and the Cameroonian media and the international media as well, and that the outcome is a true reflection of the will of Cameroonians, the majority of whom I know are eager and are yearning for meaningful change for the country.
And that desire for change in Cameroon is actually general, and we hope that the election results will reflect the will of the people, like you said. Now, just before we go, regardless of who wins, what immediate steps should be taken, should the next government take to begin rebuilding trust in institutions and setting Cameroon on a more democratic path?
In fact, that's a very interesting question because I know a number of Cameroonians who have expressed some concerns to me that a transition, and so we don't have legislation that regulates transitions, how transitions should occur. We don't have the protocols in place. But I think that's a secondary issue. My first hope is that if, as you say, an opposition candidate were to win, that declaration should be made openly, it should be embraced by all Cameroonians as the will of the people, and then concrete steps should be taken immediately to facilitate a smooth transition of power, as has happened in many other African countries in recent months and years. And secondly, that once that individual is installed, he should begin to take concrete steps to assure all Cameroonians that they will have a voice at the table, and then proceed to put in place a platform that can bring together Cameroonians across the board to contribute to genuine constitutional and electoral reforms that can sustain a transition process as promised during the campaign period, during which transition those reforms can be put in place, new institutions can emerge, new individuals can be brought on board to lead those organizations and give confidence to the citizens that is actually the era of a new dawn. And I think that once those steps begin to be put in place, then citizens will believe that transition is for real and that their democracy will be strengthened. And my hope is that the new actors working with new institutions will give the 30 million Cameroonians the opportunity to really live in a free and in a free society where democracy can actually be practiced as designed and as expected and wished for by many Cameroonians.
Thank you so much, Dr. Christopher Fomonyo. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. Always a pleasure.
Yeah, very well, Isaac. That is Dr. Christopher Fomonyo, a Senior Associate for Africa Regional Director and Special Advisor to the President at the Washington-based National Democratic Institute. And he's nailed down on a number of key issues, Isaac. You know, the roadmap to Cameroon regaining its democratic.
Yes, you were asked.
Yes, yeah. Honestly, I think that he made a lot of points that Cameroonians have to ponder over. And I think it's in the best interest of Cameroon that some of the suggestions he's made that it's taken, those suggestions are taken on board, because it will improve upon the system to make it better. I mean, elections should be just a normal process. Not that it's not an important process, but it should be a normal process, part of our way of life, that we don't have to be apprehensive, right, when it gets there. And some of the suggestions he has made will help improve the process, the system. I think everyone in Cameroon has to be part of the process. They must be interested in it, improving, getting better, and just delivering the best for them. So I think he made so much valid points out there that all of us have to ponder over, not only for Cameroon, but for other African countries who have elections coming up in the coming months, getting to next year, that there's a need for us to actually do things better.
Yeah, well put, Isaac. And just for the viewers who are joining right now, we are talking about Cameroon's election, and it is ongoing. Voting is ongoing in this particular Central African country. And of course, just to pin down that there is a single round of voting in this country, and whoever gets the most of votes is the winner, will be declared the winner. Around 8 million voters, including 34,000 overseas, are eligible to vote at more than 31,000 polling stations in Cameroon, and Cameroon has a population of over 29 million people. And as we can see, the President Paul Biya already cast his vote. He's one of the contenders in this particular election. Many have called him a serial winner. But more interestingly, Isaac, is the question on if election is holding in the Anglophone region.
Exactly, and I think Moki has some answers for us, so we can take a listen to Moki now.
Asking to know about the situation in the English-speaking Northwest and Southwest regions, I want to tell you that the situation is not good at all, because early this morning, the government announced that they relocated some polling stations to safer localities where people could vote. And you know, as in 2018, people were located, but when the government troops left, the separatist fighters went for revenge, and it was not good for the people who voted. So a lot of people have not been voting in the English-speaking regions, especially in the hinterlands. In towns like Buea and Bamenda, which are a little bit safer, people have been going out to vote. And then we also received information this morning that separatist fighters also held a good number of people who are going to exercise their voting rights and ordered them to go back to their houses, without which the separatists said they would be punished. They didn't say the type of punishment they would give. The government is still insisting that people should vote, but people are also asking, how can they vote in areas where even the elections officials have not been able to go there, and in some areas where the military cannot even have access? So it is a difficult situation in the Northwest and Southwest regions. I would like also to add that it is not only the Northwest and Southwest regions. We also have a similar situation in the far north region of Cameroon, where Boko Haram insurgency, Boko Haram terrorists have continued attacking. There, in some villages, there are no polling stations at all, which means that elections are not going to take place there, or those who have the means may relocate to areas that are safer. So in areas where there is insecurity in Cameroon, cannot say elections are going on very well.
Yeah, so George, so those were some of the points that Moki mentioned.
And definitely paints a very worrying situation. And as we've also heard from Michelle Ndoki, who was claiming that it could be that most of voters within this region could be disenfranchised because they are not participating in this particular process. But for those who are participating, I'm sure their hope is that their vote will count. And Cameroon is making this historic, voting process that could see Africa's oldest leader extend his rule by another 7 years, Isaac. And analysts have predicted that Paul Biya could emerge victorious. And now he is 92, and this could lead him up to 99 when he will be retiring.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I've always said that if that is what majority of Cameroonians believe, that they want, so be it. I think the issue obviously will be whether the election was free and fair, right? And that there was no manipulation to keep him still in power or to let him still continue to be in power. I think if we can answer that question and say it is free and fair, everyone believes that the process was free and fair, there's no problem if that is what Cameroonians believe that they want. But I think the challenge has always been that there have been concerns about irregularities and that the system is not free and fair and that there have been suppression of votes. And that is what I think Cameroon will have to try as much as it can to change so that people can believe that indeed the system was free and fair and he won free and fairly. But again, let's see how things unfold. Voting is still ongoing, and I'm sure that once the process ends. But election is not just about the day of election itself, right? Before
Exactly.
and even after, right? So
yeah, definitely.
I think one key thing is that it ought to be peaceful, without any incident. Areas like Moki mentioned, where there are challenges with separatists saying they don't want people to vote. I think that had to be dealt with so that people can express their will. And if you don't want him to prolong, you have to vote for someone, and people must be allowed to vote, right? Take part in the process.
Definitely.
For it. And so I think that's what I believe. But I hope that if this election goes on properly, peacefully, and credibly, it's best for the image of Cameroon and also for Africa.
Definitely. Isaac Kalechi, doing the Lord's work from Ghana. Many thanks, Isaac Kalechi. Much appreciated.
Thank
All
you,
right.
George.
And of course, just to mention, and this is just to reiterate, there is a single round of voting in Cameroon, and whoever will get the most votes will be declared the winner. Now, Cameroon has just over about 8 million voters who've been registered to vote. That is including 34,000 voters overseas are eligible to vote at more than 31,000 polling stations in the Central African country. Now, Cameroon is a country with a population of over 29 million people, majority overwhelmingly young people. And just to also reiterate, the polls opened very early in the morning today. That was at 6 a.m. and in about maybe 2 to 3 hours from now, depending on where you're watching us from, the polling will close, and they will close at 6 p.m. Cameroonian time, and the results are expected to be announced latest October 26th. For me, George Okachi, I'm really grateful, and on behalf of the entire team, Isaac Kalechi, who's managed to coordinate the entire process, and of course, my colleague Mimi Mefo and the entire team in DW Africa. Ours is just to emphasize that this is a decision for Cameroonians, and if you are a Cameroonian who is watching, you have a date with destiny, and the civic duty is beckoning, and you must perform it. And if you have a Cameroonian friend who is eligible to vote, kindly encourage them to go ahead and vote. And that is it from us. And if you want to know how this entire process is ongoing and unfolding, be sure to catch us on our YouTube channel, DW Africa, and also on our Facebook channel, DW Africa, for real-time updates. My name is George Okachi, and I was reporting from our offices here in Bonn, Germany. Thank you for watching.